Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayat udirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, and to Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, and to Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto the author, Srila Vyasadeva. So today we are reading from the second canto, entitled The Cosmic Manifestation. We are reading from chapter 7, entitled Spiritual Incarnation, and we are on text. We are on text 24. Let's change my glasses. Can you repeat one word at a time with me? Yasmai. Yasmai.
Yasmai.
Adat.
Adat.
Udadi.
Udadi.
Udabayam.
Rudavaya.
Angavepa.
Angavepa.
Margam.
Magam.
Sapadi.
Sapali.
Aripuram.
Aripuram.
Aravat.
Aravat.
Didaksho.
Didaksho.
Dure.
Dure.
Surit.
Surit.
Matita.
Matita.
Rosa.
Rosha.
Sushona.
Sushona.
Vestya.
Vishya.
Tatapyamana.
Tatapyamana.
Makara.
Makara.
Uraga.
Uraga.
Nakra.
Nakra.
Chakra.
Chakra.
Yasma adat udadi udabayangavepo.
Yasma adarudadi rudabayangavepo.
Margam sapadyaripuram maravadidaksho.
Margam sapadyaripuram haravadidaksho.
Dure surinatitarosa sushonadristya.
Dure surinatitarosha sushonadristya.
Tatapyamana makaro ragana kachakra.
Tatapyamana makaro ragana krachakra.
Yasmadadudadi udabayangavepo.
Yasmadadudadi rudabayangavepo.
Margam sapadyaripuram maravadidaksho.
Margam sapadyaripuram haravadidaksho.
Dure surinmatitarosa sushono triktya.
Dure surinmatitarosha sushonadrishtya.
Tatapyamana makaro ragana kachaka.
Tatapyamana makaro ragana krachakra.
Yasmadadudadi ugabayangavepo.
Yasmadadudadi rudabayangavepo.
Margam sapyari puram aravati daksho.
Magam sapadya ripuram haravadidaksho.
Dure surin matitaro sashushona dristya.
Dure surin matitarosha sushona drishtya.
Tata pyamana makaro ragana kachakra.
Tata pyamana makaro ragana krachakra. Yasmadharudhariruda vayangavepo.
Yasmadadudariruda bhagyanga vepo.
Magam sapadya ripuram haravadidaksho.
Magam sapadya vipuram haravadidaksho.
Dure surin matitarosha sushona drishtya.
Dure surin matitarosha sushona dristya.
Tatapyamana makaro ragana krachakra.
Tatapyamana makaro ragana chakra Yasmadadudhiruda vayanga vepo
Yasmadadudariruda
vayanga vepo.
Margam sapadya ripuram haravadidaksho
Magam sapadya vipuram haravadidaksho.
Dure surinmatitarosha sushona drishtya
Dure surin matitarosha sushona dristya.
Tatapyamana makaro raganakra chakra
Tatapyamana makaro ragana krachakra.
Yasma adad udadir udha bayanga vepo.
Yasmadadudadiruda vayanga vepo
Margam sapadya vipuram haravadidaksho.
Margam sapadya vipuram haravadidaksho
Dure surin matitarosha sushona drishtya.
Dure surinmatitarosha sushona drishtya
Tatapyamana makaro raganakra chakra.
Tatapyamana makaro raganakra chakra
Anyone else would like to check?
Yasma adaru dahiru dabayanga vepo.
Yasma udadu dadi
Udavayanga vepo
Margam sapaja rirupam haravadidaksho.
Magam sapadya vipuram haravadidaksho
Dure surhern matitaro sasushona drishta.
Dure surinmatitarosha sushona drishtya
Tatapyamana makaro raganakra chakra.
Tatapyamana makaro raganakra chakra. Anybody else?
Yasmai
Unto whom?
unto
Adat,
Adat
Gev,
Kev
Udadi,
Udadi
the great Indian Ocean.
the great Indian Ocean
Udabaya,
Udabaya
affected by fear.
affected by fear
Angavepa,
Angavepa
bodily trembling.
bodily trembling
Margam,
Margam
where?
way
Sabadi,
Sapadi
quickly.
quickly
Aripuram,
Adipuram
the city of the enemy.
the city of the enemy
Aravat,
Aravat
like that of Ara Mahadev.
like that of Hara Mahadev
Didaksho,
Idhaksho
desiring to burn to ashes.
desiring to burn to ashes
Dure,
Dure.
at a long distance.
at a long distance
Surit,
Surit
intimate friend.
intimate friend
Matita,
Matita
being aggrieved by.
being aggrieved by
Osa,
Rosha
in anger.
in anger
Shushona,
Sushona
red hot. Dristya,
Drishti
by such a glance, Tatapyamana, burning in heat, Makara, sharks, Uraga, snakes, Nakra, crocodile, chakra, circle. The personality of Godhead Ramachandra, being aggrieved for his distant intimate friend Sita, glanced over the city of the enemy Ravana with red-hot eyes, like those of Hara, who want to burn the kingdom of heaven. The great ocean, trembling in fear, gave him his way because its family members, the aquatids like the sharks, snakes, and crocodiles, were being burned by the heat of the angry red-hot eyes of the Lord. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The personality of Godhead has every sentiment of a sentient being, like all other living beings, because he is the chief and original living entity, the supreme source of all other living beings. He is the Nitya, or the chief eternal amongst all other eternals. He is the chief one, and all others are the dependent many. The many eternals are supported by one eternal, and thus both the eternals are qualitatively one. Due to such oneness, both the eternals constitutionally have a complete range of sentiments, but the difference is that the sentiments of the chief eternal are different in quantity from the sentiments of the dependent eternals. When Ramachandra was angry and showed his red-hot eyes, the whole ocean became heated with that energy, so much so that the aquatids within the great ocean felt the heat, and the personified ocean trembled in fear and offered the Lord an easy path for reaching the enemy's city. The impersonalists will see a havoc in this red-hot sentiment of the Lord because they want to see negation in perfection. Because the Lord is absolute, the impersonalists imagine that in the absolute, the sentiment of anger, which resembles mundane sentiment, must be conspicuous by absence. Due to a poor fund of knowledge, they do not realize that the sentiment of the absolute person is transcendental to all mundane concepts of quality and quantity. Had Lord Ramachandra's sentiment been of mundane origin, how could it disturb the whole ocean and its inhabitants? Can any mundane red-hot eye generate heat in the great ocean? These are factors to be distinguished in terms of the personal and a personal conception of the absolute truth. As it is said in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the absolute truth is the source of everything. So the absolute person cannot be devoid of the sentiments that are reflecting in a temporary mundane world. Rather, the different sentiments found in the absolute, either in anger or in mercy, have the same qualitative influence, or, in other words, there is no mundane difference of value because these sentiments are all on the absolute plane. Such sentiments are definitely not absent in the absolute, or as the impersonalist thinks, making their mundane estimation of the transcendental world. Om Agyanati Merandasya Gyanachala Shalakaya Shakshun Miletanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. Offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Shtabinam Yet Abhutani Swayamupa Sodamupa Kadamalam Dadatiswa Padam Tikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Sha Shri Upa Sagajatam Sagana Ragutatam Pitam Tam Sajivam Sarvetam Sarvadutam Parijana Saita Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Sha E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosite Tata Kamchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanshakal Patarubhyacha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvesesha Shunyavadi Paskacha Dejatarine. The personality of Godhead Ramachandra, being aggrieved for his distant, intimate friend Sita, glance over the city of the enemy Ravana with red-hot eyes like those of Pharaoh, who wanted to burn the kingdom of heaven. The great ocean, trembling in fear, gave him his way because its family members, aquatic, like the sharks, snakes, and crocodiles, were being burned by the heat of the angry red-hot eyes of the Lord. Hare Krishna. I really appreciate Prabhupada's purport of this verse. And now Prabhupada, it goes into, of course, this is a chapter, the chapter is not about Lord Ramachandra, the chapter is about the squadron incarnation, to support us to understand all the incarnation of the Lord and their purpose. And also by his incarnation, the Lord kind of come here to present himself, to kind of introduce himself, introduce his different expansion, his different energy, his different attributes, qualities. And here in this chapter, we have seen different incarnations, and now we are hearing about Lord Ramachandra, and how when he finally found out where Sita was, and it was very close. In fact, he was on one side of the ocean, and Ceylon, at the time Sri Lanka was on the other side in an island, and that's where Sita was kept captive by Ravana. And in a verse, Srila Prabhupada says intimate friend, and it's also for us to realize that the Lord is a person, and a person has intimate friend, and Sita was very, very dear to the Lord. So not everything is pleasing to the Lord, and the Ravana kidnapping Sita was very, very displeasing to Ramachandra. It's his wife, intimate friend, his dearest friend, and Ravana, he had the arrogance to kidnap the wife of the Lord. And so the Lord is there on one side of the ocean, and then he's red with anger. He's so angry at Ravana for kidnapping Sita. How dare can he kidnap Sita? Really to hurt his wife in that way, to keep her captive away from her beloved Lord Ramachandra. And so the Lord is red hot eyes were manifested, and Srila Prabhupada in this purport, he goes into presenting the perspectives that the Lord is sentient, absolutely sentient, though have proved, and personal calamities, though have moved. So that's one couplet that we read on Srila Prabhupada Appearance Day, that Srila Prabhupada wrote a poem in glorification of his spiritual master. And the spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, really liked that couplet because he understood that Bhaktivedanta, at the same time, Abhayacharan and Abhayacharan Arvinda, what's his initiative name, he could see that he understands my mission. And Prabhupada is in this purport, and so much through his books, he continued to show his mission to destroy the impersonal calamities. So here specifically, Srila Prabhupada presents the impersonalist as they present the philosophy of nirguna. So nirguna means no qualities. And in many places in the Veda, Krishna, the absolute truth, is presented as nirguna. However, nirguna really means no material qualities. And the impersonalists, they take that as meaning no qualities because they want to negate everything about the Lord. They don't want to accept that the Lord has qualities. And naturally, a devotee will feel very urgent about burning to ashes all impersonalist conception of the Lord. Because let's say I'm with my best friend, I have a friend that's very, very dear to me. I love that person. And then there is a class of people constantly who tell me, your friend doesn't exist. Your friend doesn't have any quality. Your friend doesn't have like and dislike. And your friend doesn't have any emotion or sentiments. Then naturally, I will feel enraged. How dare are you speaking about my friend in that way? My friend is giving me so much. He has so much feelings, sentiments. He has so many things that we love doing together, that he likes, and so many things he dislikes too. So naturally, the pure devotee of the Lord, who are in connection with the Lord, direct connection in the Lord as their dearmost friend, they don't have so much tolerance for impersonalism. And I love the way I really love the way Prabhupada presented in this specific purport. His wording is quite different than what I've read in different parts of his books, like the eternal sheaf of many eternal dependence. And the Srila Prabhupada explained that qualitatively we are one. Qualitatively we are one. We are on a spiritual platform. We have the same qualities in the Lord. And because whatever is in the source is in effect. And to not understand that seems almost strange. To not understand that I have senses. I'm sentient. I have senses. I have like, I have dislike. I have qualities. I have emotions. And of course, the source of those emotions, the source of those qualities, the source of any of my experience is going to have those experiences too. How can be the effect superior to the cause? How can I have qualities and my creator don't have quality? It really doesn't make sense. And at the same time, the impersonalist tendency is so strong that Prabhupada used the words negation imperfection. Negation imperfection. That's what the impersonalists want. They want that perfection only happen when there is negation. When I negate myself and the Supreme Absolute Truth, the Lord, I negate the possibility of perfection. The possibility of perfection, sentient perfection. So, Srila Prabhupada, he goes into defeating them in a very simple, kind of childlike way. He said, okay, so if you think that Radha Ramachandra is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he's manifesting anger, for losing his dear intimate friend, then how come that anger was able to completely agitate the ocean and bring the ocean to being so hot that the aquatic were complaining, and the ocean personified came and bowed down in front of Lord Ramachandra and gave him everything he wanted. If his anger is a manifestation of a human being or a created being, how come that is possible? So it's a very simple logic that Srila Prabhupada used here, quite childlike. And at the same time, often simple logic is carried so much of grave, deep truth to understand. And Prabhupada goes on spelling out the Bhagavatam. And the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavatam is a commentary of the Vedanta Sutra, and the second sutra of the Vedanta Sutra says, express how everything that's in the source is finding effect, and vice versa. And aham sarvasya prabhavo. So our Krishna, he said in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the source of everything. He's the source of the spiritual and the material world, everything. So how can be the cause be inferior, like the effect be inferior to the creator? The creation can never be inferior to the creation. Like if I create anything, that creation is going to have qualities coming from me, but it won't have all the quality of myself in the same quantity. So Prabhupada made the point of oneness in quality and difference in quantity. So where I went with this purport, I went into, recently I had different conversation and coaching session with clients that were really experiencing deep existential despair, like coming to a place of success. Maybe they have money, maybe they have nice house, maybe they have a nice partner, wife, children, life is good. And within themselves, they feel deep despair. And they don't understand that despair. They don't understand that despair. And that despair often leads us to a place of not caring. So all that is pointless, all that is meaningless. How does that matter? Nothing matters. It doesn't matter what I do or what I don't do. And then we found ourselves in such a dark place of pain. And Srila Prabhupada, of course, in his purport is presenting the impersonalist preacher, the preacher who preached impersonalism. And at the same time, Srila Prabhupada's mission is for us Westerners. So we know that in each and every one of his purports, he is helping us. So we want to look at where is our impersonalism? Where do we deny Krishna's personality? And personally, I see that in those attitudes, it doesn't matter. It's pointless, it's meaningless. Because that's denying the personality of Godhead. Because if Krishna is a person, if this world is on purpose, according to his desire to support the conditioned soul to go back to Godhead, then everything matters. There is no meaningless. There is no voidism. there is no pointlessness in the universe. And that pointlessness, we only see it through our impersonalist tendency. So to recognize them, to be able to really apply Srila Prabhupada's teaching about impersonalism and voidism, nirvishesha, shunyavadi, nihilism, and that's his mission for a spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada, to recognize that in our heart. It's part of the process. It's part of the painful process. I know for many years, I was fighting with that, those doubts, deep doubts in my heart, deep doubt about Krishna consciousness. And my deep doubt about Krishna consciousness were coming from the impersonalist tendency. They were coming from not seeing any order in the universe, thinking that everything is just random, being doubtful of any purpose for what I was seeing, because there is so much pain, so much violence, aggressivity. There is so much nonsense going on that it's very, very, very difficult to accept that behind all that, there is an order, there is an organization, and beyond that order and organization, there is a person. So in my own journey in spiritual life, I could see many of my doubts coming from that place of impersonal calamities. And part of our journey of spiritual life is to uproot those, to come to a place of understanding, no, it's not like everything is one, it's not pointless, it's not meaningless, it's not like it doesn't matter. It does matter. Why? Because Krishna matters. And because Krishna is sentient, because he has sentiment, he has things that are angering to him, like, for example, Ravana kidnapping Sita. And in our life also, we can see, what is it that I may do that are not pleasing? And of course, it's a higher level of responsibility than imagining that there is not such a person. What is it that I'm doing that's really, really not pleasing to the Lord? The Lord is revealing himself. He's a cowherd boy. He likes milk. He likes butter. He likes to have fun with his cowherd boyfriends. He likes to play tricks on Mother Yashoda. He likes to take care of the cows. He loves to protect the cows. He likes to wrestle. He likes to play instruments. So we can look in our activities how maybe our impersonalism is kind of giving us excuses to avoid our responsibility to live a life that's pleasing to Krishna, truly pleasing to Krishna, truly in service to Krishna. The other day I was listening to a class, and Krishna, Srila Prabhupada was saying how we are, like, it's not like, oh, I'm going to start serving Krishna now. It's not like that. We always serve Krishna. We cannot avoid it. We cannot avoid it. We always serve Krishna. But it's not that because we serve Krishna, we're always on purpose with the universe. We're always serving Krishna. There is no moment in our entire life where we don't serve Krishna. And that service of Krishna is not necessarily pleasing to Krishna. Aniya vilasita sunyam gyana karma karmadya anavutam anukulina Krishna nushilanam bhakti udama. This is from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the nectar of devotion, and give us a definition of pure devotional service. When we say pure devotional service is devoid of any karma tendency. Karma tendency is I do something to get something. So pure devotional service is devoid of karma, of me doing something to get something. It's devoid of jnana. Jnana is I'm accumulating knowledge also to get something. It's more subtle, but it's an accumulation of knowledge, jnana. And it's favorable to Krishna. So favorable to Krishna means our action, everything we do throughout the day is favorable to Krishna, is pleasing to Krishna. So we always serve Krishna. There is no way to step out of that constitutional position of servant of Krishna. We always serve Krishna. We serve it involuntarily or we serve him voluntarily. And voluntary service to Krishna, I mean, it's favorable. It's pleasing to his senses. It's pleasing to his sentiment because he's sentient. It's pleasing to his tongue. It's pleasing to his ears. It's pleasing to his devotees. The Lord loves his devotees. He loves all his devotees, all his eternal associates, all his devotees. The Lord loves cows. It's pleasing to the cows. We can go and see like how we treat the cows. Directly will be a reflection of our love to Krishna, because Krishna loves cows. Is the river Yamuna, how we treat the river, how we treat, and then life becomes so meaningful. There is no void in the universe. There is no dark hole anywhere. There is no sense of that meaninglessness. And by understanding Krishna as a person, we get to step out of that deep existential pain. And I don't know deeper pain than that existential pain. There is no deeper pain, that sense of not knowing anything and giving up because it's so meaningless and pointless. No deeper pain. Even the drama of material life, of frustrated sense enjoyment, or any frustration of our attachment is not as painful as the pain of the existential pain born of our impersonalist tendency. So I'm grateful to Srila Prabhupada for again and again in different way, and I love this purport because Prabhupada brings this point home in a quite from a different angles than he usually does. From the eternal, like really showing how we are qualitatively eternal, we are qualitatively one with him, and quantitatively different. And if we are one with him and we have preference, we have like and dislike, we have anger, we have compassion, we have mercy, we have sadness, we have longing, then the Lord does too. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to read the Sanskrit of the verse and the verse again. Yasma adad udadir udabayanga vepo margam sapajaripuram aravadidaksho dure surin matitarosa shushonadristya Tatapyamana makaro ragana kachakra. The personality of Godhead, Ramachandra, being aggrieved for his distant intimate friend, Sita, glanced over the city of the enemy Ravana with red-hot eyes like those of Pharaoh, who wanted to burn the kingdom of heaven. The great ocean, trembling in fear, gave him his way, because its family members, the aquatics, like the sharks, snakes, and crocodiles, were being burned by the heat of the angry red-hot eyes of the Lord. Thank you for listening. I invite you for discussion, question, challenges, whatever is happening for you.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you're speaking about the difference between being we're always in service to Krishna and it might not always be pleasing to Krishna. What does it mean that we're always in service to Krishna? Because the way that I think of it is like being in service to Krishna is doing things that are pleasing for Krishna. So what does it mean that we're always in service even if we're not being
Pleasing to Krishna. Thank you for asking that question. You allow me to expand on that point. So what I understand Srila Prabhupada was saying is that this cosmic manifestation is on purpose. So everyone play his part in service to that purpose. Like let's say if we have a lion eating a gazelle, we can say, oh, it's violent and it's disgusting and it's fully on purpose. So as human beings, we have the choice to serve Krishna in a way that's pleasing to Krishna and that's favorable to Krishna, or we serve like the lion and the gazelle, meaning we are part of the intricacy of the action and reaction of karma. And in that way, all our actions are perfect. There's a perfection. It doesn't mean that I am perfect, but whatever I do is going to be within the jurisdiction of that cosmic manifestation that's made to reform the soul, all the soul, from their separation from Krishna. So yes, a lion is on purpose, is serving Krishna. Me doing whatever I do on the automatic pilot, from my conditioning, from my karma, acting out under the jurisdiction of the three modes of material nature, it's still serving Krishna. Because it's perfect within the cosmic manifestation, within the purpose of this world. Does that make more sense for you?
Yeah, like if I'm angry and I go out and kill someone, like whatever, maybe that would somehow fit within that person's karma or whatever, and it wouldn't be pleasing to Krishna. And if instead I pray to Krishna, please help me get over my anger, then that would be more pleasing to Krishna than me going out and killing the person. And me going out and killing the person, that would still be within the context of karma, so it wouldn't be pleasing to Krishna. Yeah,
I like your example. Exactly. So we are acting out under our conditioning. We don't have that, like the free will we have is not to serve or not to serve. The free will is to serve favorably or not, and to choose Krishna, to choose serving to Krishna. And then if we choose the service to Krishna, then we are under the internal energy of the Lord. We are under the spiritual energy of the Lord. And if we choose not to serve Krishna favorably, then we are under the control of the external energy of the Lord, the material energy of the Lord. And when we are acting kind of automatically under, thinking that I'm the controller, thinking that I'm the Lord over everything here, but really just acting out our conditioning, our karma, and being tied by the ropes of the three gunas.
And is it like, because you described we're either in the internal energy or the external energy, is it like black or white moment to moment? And so then we have like a collective average, or is it like in any moment, it's a gradient? I'm like 60% serving and 40% pleasing, or 60% serving in an unpleasing way, 40% I'm serving in a pleasing way? Or is it like, yeah, now I'm serving in a pleasing way, and the next minute I'm not serving in a pleasing way? Yeah, so you're asking, okay, like we are marginal. Marginal means we can choose like to be under the external energy or the internal energy. And you're saying, is it like 1 and 0, like binary? Is it binary, or is there gradient of color, or gradient like that? My understanding, like there is a part in the Bhagavad Gita where it describes mixed devotional service. So devotional service
you know, I gave the definition of pure devotional service is fully favorable for the Lord. But as long as I want my devotional service in some ways to be favorable to me, then it's mixed devotional service. It's just not pure devotional service, and it's still devotional service. So when we do render devotional service, mixed devotional service, so we do receive the shelter of the internal energy, and part also is still acting our karma and still acting our conditioning, as long as we are not fully acting from the platform of pure devotional service.
So it's like it's me chanting to Krishna like how I do every day. It's more pleasing to Krishna than me going out and killing people, and it's less pleasing than if I were to chant to Krishna without any desire for anything in return.
Exactly. It's about meeting ourselves where we are at, and there is devotional service in the mode of ignorance. There is devotional service in the mode of passion. There is devotional service in the mode of goodness. And then there is Suddha Sattva, devotional service that's devoid of all those modes. And yeah, like when I chant, I wish I was fully attentive to my chanting. But it's not like, oh, because I'm not attentive, then I'm going to stop chanting and I'm going to do something else. Because I know my chanting, even so my chanting is full of fault, is polluted by the 10 offenses, my chanting is far from purity or attentiveness, it's still pleasing to Krishna. And it's not as pleasing to Krishna as if I was giving it a 100% of full attention to my chanting. Yes. Yes. Thank you for your question. Thank you very much.
I'm thinking of that verse in this discussion in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Ye yata mam prapadyante tamstateva bhajamyaham mamavartmanavartante manushya partha sarvasha. And Krishna says, everyone follows my path in all respects. So whatever we do, we're following some path set up by Krishna. And just like, now I don't know if I would use the term we're serving Krishna, but just like, again, like if, let's say in terms of the state, there's many ways to serve the government. Now if someone commits a terrible crime, then I don't know that I would say they're serving the government, but they're following the government's path because they're misusing the free will. And then they go into a system created by the government called the prison system. So they're following the government's path. And so I can see, because there's a difference between the lion killing a gazelle and me supporting cows going to the slaughterhouse by eating meat. And whereas the lion is perfectly doing its thing as a lion, but for me to do it, it's a violation of the human free will. And so still I'm following Krishna's path, but in one sense, I don't know if I would call it service, because it's not at all pleasing. In fact, it's very displeasing. It's very angering. It's very angering to Lord Ramachandra and Krishna. And so that's like the language for me that, whatever we do, we're following a path created by Krishna, whether it's this yoga path, karma yoga, or simply the prison system of rehabilitation, going to a lower species. Of course, to use the language, whatever we do is service. I mean, that is very much the Uttama Adhikari vision. The Uttama Adhikari vision is that everyone is engaged in service except for me. So that is the perspective of the humble, enlightened Uttama Adhikari. So I just wanted to share some things about language and perspectives.
Thank you for sharing.
Haribol.
Haribol, Dao, Prabhu.
I really liked your same thing that you appreciated about this verse really stood out to me too, about that, how everything comes from Krishna, even anger. Like, for example, where does this attraction between men and women come from unless it's in God? If he's just only up there having homosexual relationships, or there's only really a man and no half woman. You know? Anyhow, it's just a simple point that sometimes, yes, there's new devotees, or because we came from an impersonal background, most of us, like when devotees would see Prabhupada get angry in an accident, in a class, about, or even some, especially some hippie who really still in that mood would say, why is he getting angry? Because there is anger in devotional service towards certain things, like a yogi who's teaching people to forget God. He's not personal. So anyhow, it just made me think that I appreciated that you're pointing out that same, how Krishna has anger. And we also, I was just thinking about it, even now, when we all saw that the police officer killing a guy in Minnesota, so many people got so angry. Now, the devotee might say, well, I guess I shouldn't get angry. No, it's natural to get angry at that. That is so nonsense to be keeping the guy's neck for 9 minutes, So it's natural for anyone who's got a good consciousness like Krishna, you are angry at that. And don't feel bad about that. That's all. I just want to say a few things like that.
Yeah, thank you. Your emphasizes the point that, yeah, naturally, even on a spiritual level, there is things to be angry at. Like Krishna is angry that Ravana took Sita. Krishna is angry to see our sinful action and our foolish choices. And then the spiritual master is going to manifest anger also to really kill the impersonal tendency inside of us, and impersonal tendency will be like, oh, if that person is angry, that means he's not spiritual. But that's a false conception.
Right. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Devi, Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Marie.
Yes, Hare Krishna, George.
Thank you so much for the class.
George and Charles Bati.
Yeah, I have a question about, well, just a curiosity, I guess it's come up, is it's about like the emphasis that Prabhupada places on teaching us about impersonalism and the dangers of impersonalism. So as a very like novice devotee in the path, it seems like everything and that Prabhupada has left us, it builds up, to understanding God as a person, leading up to chapter 10 when, in Krishna book, and when you see all the pastimes of the person that is God. So my curiosity is, why is there so much emphasis on impersonalism? Is there maybe like some point along the path of devotional service, like is there a part, or maybe like Brahma realization, where we can get confused that what is the reason that I guess Prabhupada emphasizes the impersonalism, like being aware of impersonalism so much? My mind is going like, is there some point that I will get confused, or is there a risk at some point in this realization? Because the path otherwise seems to point everything Krishna as a person, and you go into the pastimes and all this, it culminates with all the pastimes and the name, fame, glory, and activities and pastimes. So that was just kind of like my curiosity that was coming up.
Yeah, so your curiosity is like, okay, like the main message is Krishna's supreme personality of Godhead. He's a person, he has a personality, and for us to serve him with love and devotion and develop love of God, love for a person. So why is it, since this is the goal and really the main point, why is it that Srila Prabhupada spends so much time in this purport highlighting the danger of impersonalism, and also like in his pranam mantra is his mission. And I shared earlier in the class how yeah, I could see practically all my doubts in my spiritual life, and I'm sure the doubt that are going to come, doubt come until, you know, we are pure devotees. They are our helper, like Arjuna had a lot of doubts and they help him move forward. So our doubts are helping us moving forward in spiritual life. And if I'm really looking at my every doubt I may have, they are coming from the impersonal calamity inside myself. And Srila Prabhupada, he pointed out because he wants us to be able to see it. Like Srila Prabhupada speaks so much about the misery of the material life. Misery of the material life. So much of his purpose are about misery of material life. And we can say, why speak about misery about the material life? Why not focusing on the happiness of bliss, of spiritual life? Because as long as we are not able to really identify that material life is miserable, anything on the realm of the external energy is miserable, it's going to be difficult to really make progress in spiritual life. So similarly, as long as we're not capable of identifying what is impersonalism within ourselves and outside of ourselves, it's going to be difficult to weed out the weed. Like if I go to the garden sometime, so I remember a while back, there was little kids that they were looking for jobs. And so I said, okay, so if they wanted some money, I said, okay, you can weed my garden. But they didn't know how to differentiate what was a weed from what was a creeper. So they put out all my marigolds because they had no clue what was a weed and what was a flower. So similarly, we don't really know what's in our garden and what's are the weed in our heart. But he pointed out like, this is a weed. Look at it. Look at what it looks like, how it feels, like denying qualities of the Lord, denying what's pleasing, not pleasing to the Lord, wanted to disappear, or like there is a purport, I think, 4.10 in a Bhagavad Gita, where Srila Prabhupada describes the psychology of impersonalism. Because we come to a place where we are so fried by the material energy and by relationship that we want to deny relationship. Like, I don't want relationship anymore. So because we become so afraid of relationship and personalism, then we experience attraction for impersonalism. Because of our disgust with the material energy, we want to deny the personality of Godhead, personality, because we suffer so much because of difference of personality. So it's better to deny my personality and God's personality as I move forward. So in so many ways, we can look at that weed inside our heart. And Srila Prabhupada described it from different angles. Today, I really like the way Prabhupada described it. For us to get it, to get that, okay, that's a weed and I need to know it because I need to be able to recognize it when I go in the yard and pull the weed and make sure that I pull that one, not thinking that weed is really the creeper of bhakti. Not be confused or bewildered by that weed, because yes, also what you're saying is true, is that as a devotee advanced in spiritual life, he may come to Brahman realization, Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. He may come to that place, and that place may feel really, really good in comparison to any material enjoyment. It says that even the heavenly enjoyment on heavenly planet is like a drop in comparison to the enjoyment that comes from impersonal liberation. So the impersonal liberation is so much more fulfilling than anything else we are definitely experiencing on this planet, but also in heavenly planet. So naturally, there is a risk of us getting stuck there. Because if a part of us is practicing spiritual life for being free from material misery, or to enjoy in some ways, to feel bliss in some ways. And we may arrive there and feel, wow, I'm a pure devotee. And without seeing that, in fact, it's not the goal of devotional service. And we may get stuck there. And it describes that the bliss derived from impersonal realization is like the water contained in the footprint of a calf in comparison to the ocean of bliss that comes from pure devotional service, of completely abandoning ourselves in service to Krishna and not anymore being concerned about our own happiness.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate.
That's the we need to know.
Yeah, it's like it seems like it's very subtle, like very subtle and insidious, like insidious rather, insidious kind of danger. And I appreciate even what you said earlier, that like thinking about the river Yamuna, and connecting with the personal aspect of Krishna, in like, I don't want to like be a polluter, but like is my intention, because I'm thinking of the river Yamuna and wanting, you know, like to do something that is pleasing, like not pollute the waters or pollute the environment, because I'm thinking about Krishna, like making connection in aspects of life that might not be as clear as like I'm gonna go out kill somebody, or like something intense. It's like trying to always constantly think of Krishna. So yeah, thank you for emphasizing how subtle and how insidious it can be to kind of think, oh, I know that, you know, like aspect of, yeah. Thank you, Mary. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, George. Hare Krishna.
I see Kim has her hand up.
Kim, you're
Hi.
hi.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the class. It was very nice. It made me think of, like, for personal, trying to practice bhakti yoga, the personal relationship is incredibly important. And so this verse showing how Ramachandra got angry, it reminds me of when as a little child in the Bible, there was a scripture in the Old Testament about hurting God's people was like touching the pupil of his eye. And I loved that verse as a child. I just loved it. And I think now that the reason I must have loved it so much, I think, is because it brought God onto a personal level where I could really think about either hurting him, which of course I didn't want to do, or making him happy, which was harder. But it just really brought him into that aspect for me as a little kid. And I think verses like this and the Bhagavatam and the Bible that can really bring him into a personality that we can relate to is really important for loving him. So I don't know, that's what it made me think of the class. I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you for sharing. Like really, as a child, that's very impressive. As a child, you picked up on that verse, because that verse was speaking about the pupils of the Lord. That means that he have eyes. He have eyes and he can be hurt. And you see, like, yeah, it's a supreme personality of Godhead. We are person and he is a person. And then if I want to make that person happy, I'm going to do things that are not displeasing to him. And then more and more,
yes.
we're going to do things that are pleasing to him. And those verses are
and I also, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Yeah, and also, like, I think as a child, there was a lot of emphasis on doing things right or wrong, more for consequence, whereas that verse helped me to bring it more into doing things right and wrong because of pleasing or not pleasing God, which was a different level that for some reason I liked better, than the punishment and reward aspect.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you're sharing. And because it's a natural tendency, and I know for you, Kim, is so much a natural tendency to want to please others. And so thinking of Krishna as a person and doing things that are pleasing to him, it's motivating, it's enthusing, it's a natural tendency versus doing things right and wrong and looking at them right and wrong in a duality just because morality or because of rules and regulation. That was really less inspiring, and it's less inspiring, and that's why to understand the Lord as a person, He can help us so much. In fact, integrating the rule and regulation as they support us to be pleasing to God, instead of applying the rule and regulation for the sake of them, which is not spiritual in itself.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, in a Nectar of Instruction, he said things that are unfavorable to devotional service, and one of them is following the rule and regulation for the sake of following them. Yeah, so it's not favorable for devotional service to do that. And so as a child, you had a really deep understanding of bhakti.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know if that's true, but in that one verse, it did bring that out for me, which is wonderful. Yes. Thank you.
It seems that child has something very, very deep. And I know you grew up like really in a religious community, and naturally you grew up in that community because you were a devotee in your heart and were looking for something. And then that child has really got bhakti more than maybe the head of the church at the time. Yes. Thank you for sharing, Kim. Kiss, you had a question?
Is there a difference between merging into the Brahman effulgence and Brahman realization?
Well, first, merging is not possible. It's just a really important part that Srila Prabhupada also spent a lot of time emphasizes, because the merging is an illusion of something that the impersonalists go for. And he says it's like if you have a green bird, which there is many green birds in Vrindavan, entering a green tree, then the bird and the tree never merge into one. So the merging never really happen because we are eternally part and parcel of Krishna, and we never lose our individuality. But the desire to merge is there. So that's one distinction I want to make in responding to your question. And then Brahman realization, Brahman realization is realizing that Krishna is everything. So Krishna is everything is reality. Brahman realization, to be Brahman realized is a very elevated state of spiritual advancement. What Prabhupada is pointing out is a danger of stopping there, or thinking that Brahman realization is an absolute realization and that there is nothing beyond that realization. But in itself, Brahman realization is a very elevated stage. And in some of the teaching, that stage is called Vasudev, the platform of pure goodness, Vasudev. And really pure devotional service starts there. Devotional service in some way. We are practicing devotional service, it's mixed devotional service, and is absolute. And also, there is in many of Prabhupada's teaching where devotional service starts on Brahman realization, start from the platform of Vasudev.
Yeah, so that's the difference between, so that would be like the difference between like Buddhism versus this being the beginning of devotional service is just the intention, I guess. Like the Buddhists, they see the Brahman realization as the all in all, versus coming into devotional service is that it's an attempt to come closer to Krishna.
Yeah, my understanding of Buddhism, they are aiming at Buddhism, nihilism, and impersonalists are aiming at Brahman realization. So Prabhupada said Buddhism is like another it's materialistic philosophy. It's not even spiritual. And Brahman realization is a spiritual platform. It's very, very elevated. Brahman realization is to be able to see that everything is Krishna. There is oneness, that qualitative oneness that Srila Prabhupada is speaking about in his verse. And then the merging, like you said, the difference between the merging into the oneness is just an illusion. It never happened. It doesn't exist. Yes.
Yeah, thanks. The Buddhist philosophy, of course, there's so many variations, but basically Buddhist philosophy as we understand it, it doesn't have a conception of Brahman. Buddhist philosophy would say Brahman is illusion.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So yeah, that's an important distinction. Yeah.
Thank you for your question, Keith. Thank you. Anything else? Entourage, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai,
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
jai.